Okay, so we're now getting more details on what happened to Xi Jinping at the annual summer retreat. A military elder was there with other elders who confronted Xi Jinping. What do we make of this information and the ongoing purge in the military? Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. In our last episode analyzing this news from Nikkei Asia's Katsuji Nakazawa, we discussed now how Xi Jinping was under pressure from party elders represented by a man named Zhang, who was a faction boss at the annual summer retreat in Beidaihe. Now you can check out that video first to understand what this whole fiasco is really about. Now, in the aftermath, Xi Jinping vented his frustration and blamed his predecessors for the problems facing communist China. The same reporter has now written a new report with more details surrounding that meeting, and it really sheds light on the ongoing military purge. It's obviously a good thing that the messiness of the Chinese Communist Party is on full display. We can watch in real time as two sides beat each other up and destroy the CCP from within. Implosion alert. First, let's talk about the details, and in the second half, we'll talk about what the military generals could do. According to Nakazawa, the meeting between Xi and Zhang was accompanied by a military party elder from the Deng Xiaoping era. And this man described as, quote, a 94-year-old military heavyweight. His name is Chi Haotian. He sat silently as the other elder delivered the message to Xi Jinping. Now, it's worth noting that the party elders are very much against Xi, and in particular, Zhang and Jiang Zemin's factions. These are enemies of Xi Jinping. Now, Chi Haotian is an ally of them, and that indicates to us, or confirms my suspicion, as I did raise that in the last episode, how Xi's purge of the military is essentially trying to wage a full-scale warfare against all of the red factions, to try to keep them in line. So who is Chi Haotian? Well, he was one of the main beneficiaries of the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. He rose through the ranks in the military. Chi Haotian has long been accused of being a key figure in gathering troops to Beijing on June 4th, and he was the deputy commander of the martial law forces that killed many students. Let's first do a sponsored video before we continue. Very quality products. Blueberry carries some of the best skincare products out there, including this Dermaroller face mask. It has intensive hydration from the hyaluronic acid, and I use it once a week. It helps me keep me from getting overproduction of oil, which leads me to have acne breakouts. And of course, I use makeup when I film on camera that when I take it off, my skin gets quite dry. This does both to help me protect and repair my skin. So head on over using my link in the description and you can receive 15% off all products and free shipping in the United States if you spend $70 or more. Right, so after 1989, during Deng Xiaoping's last years, Xi rose through the ranks to become defense minister and then chief of the general office in the military, and then subsequently becoming the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, which is the top commanding body of the CCP military, or the PLA. And the vice chair is the second in command just to the CCP leader. He also served as a key advisor in the military. After Jiang Zemin, who the former CCP leader, he has now died, when he was also part of that 1989 gang of benefiting from the massacre, succeeded Deng Xiaoping, Xi remained as the vice chair of the Central Military Commission going forward. During his tenure as vice chair, Xi amassed a huge amounts of personnel and influence within the military. And even after he retired, his successors, who again were all allies of Jiang Zemin, didn't really purge those personnels inside the military, but rather they continue to build that up on top of what he had already put in place. Now, this again, because the reason that these people all belong to the 6-4 gangs, so they all have to kind of collaborate to maintain that power because of the mess that brought them together. Right, so those that rose to power after the Tiananmen Square massacre, they've continued to sort of work with each other in like an establishment type of scenario. Now, like I said, Xi's successors in the military, Guo Bosheng and Xu Caihou, of course, they were also allies of Zhang. Later on, those, of course, they were all purged by Xi Jinping and removed from the party because of corruption. But prior to that, they were all continuing to send more people of their own factions into the military and promoting them through the ranks. Now, the point is that Xi's successors continue to make this alliance, and in terms of military power, to the point now, Xi Jinping, when he came into power, there was nobody loyal to him within the military. And it continues to this day. Even those that after the top leaders had fall down because of Xi Jinping's purge, the existing power structure and command chain still were showing their allegiance to the former boss or the establishment factions that were there before Xi Jinping. So this means that as Xi waged his war on the military red families, the length to which he will have to go to fire, to purge, to replace people will be so great that it could take years before he really overhauls anything. So that by the time he replaces every other faction's people with his own people, there could be nobody left. And that's a reality. Now, according to Nikkei's report, Qi sat silently as Deng Qinghong delivered the message to Xi. Now, this is an interesting action from the 94-year-old. Sure, you can say that he's old, but he represents the military's establishment. As we've outlined in multiple episodes of Elite Politics, I recommend you actually go to the playlist section and watch them to get a better understanding of what's going on. But Xi Jinping's anti-corruption against the military, it's an attempt to bring these factions in line to be loyal to Xi, bend the knee or be removed. After taking the helm of the Central Military Commission as its chairman in 2012, Xi came out with a slogan directing the military to, quote, listen and to follow the orders of the party. And that party in this case is Xi himself. Xi Jinping is the party, and the party is Xi Jinping. And so some concrete actions that Xi has done to weaken the influence of the older guys include the anti-corruption campaign, as well as restructuring the entire military system in 2016, and then setting up different work groups within those military systems. As well as he also installed this new general office, which basically acts as a spying intelligence office that has people installed into every corner of the military. And so through all of these things, he's ruled based on the police state as well as an intelligence state, much like how Stalin ruled. But this new slogan here, the listen and follow the party's order, if we take that at face value, it essentially means that the military was previously not listening to orders. Whose orders? Well, obviously they weren't listening to Xi's orders. So it's worth noting that the CCP's real power comes from controlling the military. Because all the other forms of positions, whether that's the general secretary or the president, they're all useless if the leader doesn't have a grip on the military. That's what happened with Hu Jintao. He was essentially rendered useless politically because his predecessor, Jiang Zemin, still held on to the chair of the Central Military Commission for a few years before he gave that up. So for Xi Jinping, having the control of the military is of top priority. But Xi Jinping seems like he wants to say that within the military, the party, and the system, all of it, they should be under me. Nobody should be because of the military, that's how they get power. But rather, it should be that Xi Jinping is here, and then the military, the party, and the government are all below me. So he's saying that I should rise above the existing system, much like Mao. So failing to do so essentially means that Xi Jinping either will purge you from the system or that he's going to replace you with somebody else. And that's basically what's going on now. At the same time, Xi Jinping seems to have knocked off people who are loyal to him, like Defense Minister Li Shangfu and Qin Gang. So it's a double-edged sword, right? You hurt other people, but you also hurt yourself. The intended effect is that everyone in the end should bow to Xi, but the actual effects of this ongoing purge seems to have done more to push people away rather than be obedient to him. So I should make it clear that when we talk about loyalty to Xi Jinping in the CCP sense, it's not really, there's no absolute loyalty, right? It's simply a matter of picking the right faction at the time. And that applies to most of the people in the system. And if we consider that the military is where Xi Jinping doesn't have staunch allies, his command to follow Xi is simply an order to pick the side, right? If you choose to side with Xi, you could have a future, but if you choose to side against Xi, you'll be purged. And let's talk about what the military could actually do, right? In short, they can't do anything. Obviously, if the party elders are reprimanding Xi, it doesn't mean that they have the power to overthrow Xi. But it does seem to indicate that the message is clear. The current path for the CCP under Xi's leadership will end with the party destroyed. And remember, right, these things, what binds them together, the so-called establishment, is that different factions, they're not really interested in keeping China great in the sense of protecting or preserving China, but rather it's about protecting their own assets and values within the party. So these factions are simply worried that Xi Jinping will take the CCP down and destroy their lavish lifestyles. Sure, if the CCP history tells us anything, it's that the paramount chairmen like Mao or even Deng Xiaoping, they all have a solid grip on power, and they rule until they die. So the only way to change the current settings is that if Xi Jinping dies. And coup attempts have happened in the past, but they've never been successful, especially against a leader with all the power. So Qi, right, the military elder's tenure and his successors, not only did they not bring about the ruling by the military strength, they've actually increased its corruption. They ruled on 2 decades of corruption, all of the military generals. So that's why the whole Xi anti-corruption campaign works. Sure, it's a power struggle tool, but it's actually also a fact that all the CCP officials are corrupt. And so I mentioned earlier that Xi's successors Guo Boxiong and Xu Caihou, they both fell to Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign, one in 2014 and one in 2015. And so this is precisely why Xi Jinping is able to maintain his grip on power, right, using anti-corruption as the way to drive out his enemies. That isn't enough, though, because there's thousands of generals and personnel within the military who belong to the anti-Xi factions. So right now, it comes to a long-standing war between Xi and his enemies, where both sides are trying to destroy each other and trying to wane their influence of the other factions. So ultimately, I say it's really good for us because the inner party struggles are real and both sides are getting damaged. Xi Jinping will take down those that are corrupt, and anti-Xi side will try to take down those that belong to Xi as allies. But the question is still, however, like, could this all possibly end in a death for Xi scenario where he's removed from power or so on? The answer is very unlikely, but there's also the scare that Xi Jinping has. There's been attempts made in the past, but after the 20th Party Congress, I think Xi has enough power to prevent that from happening. I don't think Xi personally is sure of it, though. For example, right now, Xi Jinping is visiting Yiwu, which is an economic area in Zhejiang province. Along the way, you see all these security and secret cameras capturing the surrounding buildings. They've all been covered up. So everywhere he goes, he has these surveillance cameras, which is spying on the regular people, covered up. And that's really strange. Why would the CCP leader be so afraid to be tracked by the very system that they put in place? Xi Jinping doesn't want his enemies to know his location details and movements. He doesn't trust that the people who have access to that footage are loyal to him, and that this could become a part of a scheme. And this is very much a paranoia over concrete evidence of a coup. Maybe people aren't planning to do something, but he seems like he thinks that people are. So the party elders may be warning him that this is not the right way to run the party, but it doesn't mean they are going to start a coup. And I think the reason why Xi caused his own downfall wouldn't be that he dies by someone else's hands, but rather he's done so much purging and so much destruction to the party from within that the party just destroys itself. In other words, my view right now is that Xi's own suspicion and paranoia is the reason he will overdo everything. From the purge in the military to being a firm believer in prophecies, Xi Jinping has every worry to come from his own uncertainties rather than others. But the party elders' warnings does add to that level of suspicion that Xi has, where potentially a coup is on the way. But who knows? Anyways, that's it today for the episode of China Insider. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts on this article, as well as subscribe to our channel. All right, I'm David Zhang. This is China Insider. We'll see you next time.